My name is James. Even though my channel name is Professor Goodyear, I am not actually a professor. I am a third-year university student majoring in history in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I decided to create this ASMR channel after undergoing a period of self-reflection and self-discovery after enduring a very difficult first breakup. I realized that I wanted to create something for myself, but also something that could perhaps help other people also going through their own stresses in life, their own difficulties, whether that be in the realm of romantic relationships, school, work, family trouble, money problems, whatever it may be. I knew I wanted to create an ASMR channel because I wanted to give back to a community that has supported me for the better part of a decade. I began listening to ASMR and watching ASMR videos in, I think, 2012 or 2013. So, right before it got popular. I was about 9 or 10 then, and I'm 19 now, and will be turning 20 in July 13th, to be specific, of this year. So, essentially, what I would like to do with this channel is history-related content. Maybe reading articles online or papers I've written for classes on topics requested by you, the audience. Just keeping it simple. This is something I've searched for on YouTube by other creators, so hoping that it's out there, but I noticed there's not too many channels who do this sort of thing, so there's definitely a gap in the market for it. And it keeps it relatively easy on my end. I don't necessarily need to write any scripts or anything, and it makes it very relaxing for myself and for you. And I know this is the sort of content that I enjoy, and if I enjoy it, I'm sure there must be other people out there who do as well. So without further ado, we'll start with the first article on the first video of this channel. So I decided to start with a Wikipedia article explaining what history is, as this channel is going to be almost exclusively about history. So, history is the systematic study and documentation of human activity. The time period of events before the invention of writing systems is considered prehistory. History is an umbrella term comprising past events as well as the memory, discovery, collection, organization, presentation, and interpretation of these events. Historians seek knowledge of the past using historical sources such as written documents, oral accounts, art, and material artifacts and ecological markers. History is not complete and still has debatable mysteries. History is also an academic discipline which uses narrative to describe, examine, question, and analyze past events and investigate their pattern of cause and effect. Historians often debate best explains an event, as well as the significance of different causes and effects. Historians also debate the nature of history as an end in itself, as well as its usefulness to give perspective on the problems of the present. Stories common to a particular culture, but not supported by external sources, such as the tales surrounding King Arthur, are usually classified as cultural heritage or legends. History differs from myth in that it is supported by verifiable evidence. However, ancient cultural influences have helped spawn varying interpretations of the nature of history, which have evolved over centuries and continue to change today. The modern study of history is wide-ranging and includes the study of specific regions and the study of certain topical or thematic elements of historical investigation. History is often taught as part of primary and secondary education, and the academic study of history is a major discipline in university studies. Herodotus, a 5th century BC Greek historian, is often considered the father of history, as he was one of the first historians in the Western tradition. Although he has been criticized as the father of lies, along with his contemporary Thucydides, he helped to form the foundations for the modern study of past events and societies. Their work continues to be read today, and the gap between the culture-focused Herodotus and the military-focused Thucydides remains a point of contention or approach in modern historical writing. In East Asia, a state chronicle, the Spring and Autumn Annals, was reputed to date from as early as 722 BC, although only 2nd century BC texts have survived. So the next section is called etymology. The word history comes from historia. It was in that sense that Aristotle used the word in his History of Animals. The ancestor word is, I don't know how to say that, sorry, is attested early on in Homeric hymns. Heraclitus, the Athenian Ephesus oath, and then poetic inscriptions. I'm sorry if I butchered that word. The Greek word was borrowed into classical Latin as historia, meaning investigation, inquiry, research, account, description, written account of past events, writing of history, historical narrative, recorded knowledge of past events, story, narrative. History was borrowed from Latin into Old English, but this word fell out of use in the late Old English period. Meanwhile, as Latin became Old French, historia developed into forms such as histoire, and histoire, with new developments in the meaning. This is mostly focusing on the etymology of the word history, and I'm not a linguist, so I might skip this part to avoid embarrassment of butchering some of the words here. But if you'd like me to do read some articles on the history of language, I would be happy to do that at a later date. So I'll skip to description. Historians write in the context of their own time and with due regard to the current dominant ideas of how to interpret the past, and sometimes write to provide lessons for their own society. In the words of Benedetto Croce, all history is contemporary history. History is facilitated by the formation of true discourse of past through the production of narrative and analysis of past events relating to the human race. The modern discipline of history is dedicated to the institutional production of this discourse. All events that are remembered and preserved in some authentic form constitute the historical record. The task task of historical discourse is to identify the sources which can most usefully contribute to the production of accurate accounts of the past. Therefore, the constitution of the historian's archive is a result of circumscribing a more general archive by invalidating the usage of certain texts and documents. Part of the historian's role is to skillfully and objectively use the vast amounts of sources from the past, most often found in the archives. The process of creating a narrative inevitably generates a silence as historians remember to or emphasize different events of the past. The study of history has sometimes been classified as part of the humanities and at other times as part of the social sciences. It can also be seen as a bridge between those two broad areas, incorporating methodologies from both. Some individual historians strongly support one or the other classification. In the 20th century, the I don't know why I don't know how to pronounce that word. I feel like I should know it. I'm used to reading things, not used to reading them out loud. Whatever that word is, school revolutionized the study of history by using such outside disciplines as economics, sociology, and geography in the study of global history. Traditionally, historians have recorded events of the past either in writing or by passing on an oral tradition, and have attempted to answer historical questions through the study of written documents and oral accounts. From the beginning, historians have also used such sources as monuments, inscriptions, and pictures. In general, the sources of historical knowledge can be separated into three categories: what is written, what is said, and what is physically preserved, and historians often consult all three. But writing is the marker that separates history from what comes before. Archaeology is especially helpful in unearthing buried sites and objects which contribute to the study of history. Archaeological finds rarely stand alone, with narrative sources complementing its discoveries. Archaeology's methodologies and approaches are independent from the field of history. Historical archaeology is a specific branch of archaeology which often contrasts its conclusions against those of contemporary textual sources. For example, Mark Leon, the excavator and interpreter of historical Annapolis, Maryland, U.S., has thought to understand the contradiction between textual documents idealizing liberty and the material record, demonstrating the possession of slaves and the inequalities of wealth made apparent by the study of the total historical environment. There are varieties of ways in which history can be organized, including chronologically, culturally, territorially, and thematically. These divisions are not mutually exclusive, and significant intersections are often present. It is possible for historians to concern themselves with both the very specific and the very general, although the modern trend has been towards specialization. The area called big history resists this specialization and searches for universal patterns or trends. History has often been studied with some practical or theoretical aim, but also may be studied out of simple intellectual curiosity. I think as this is my first video, I'm going to do this one, last section here, prehistory. I'm still getting used to whispering for extended periods of time, so bear with me. But after I read this last section, we'll part ways for now and resume this article in the next video. I'm sure as time goes on, these videos will obviously get longer as I get more practice at doing these. But let's get going. Okay. Human history is the memory of the past experience of Homo sapiens around the world, as that experience has been preserved largely in written records. By prehistory, historians mean the recovery of knowledge of the past in an area where no written record exists, culture is not understood. By studying painting, drawings, carvings, and other artifacts, some information can be recovered, even in the absence of a written record. Since the 20th century, the study of prehistory is considered essential to avoid history's implicit exclusion of certain civilizations, such as those of sub-Saharan Africa and pre-Columbian America. Historians in the West have been criticized for focusing disproportionately on the Western world. In 1961, British historian E. H. Carr wrote, "The line of demarcation between prehistoric and historical times is crossed when people cease to live only in the present and become consciously interested both in their past and their future. History begins with the handing down of tradition. And tradition means the carrying of the habits and lessons of the past into the future. Records of the past begin to be kept for the benefit of future generations. This definition includes with the scope of history the strong interests of people such as indigenous Australians and New Zealand Maori in the past, and the oral records maintained and transmitted to succeeding generations, even before their contact with European civilization." Okay, I think I'll end it there for today. I think perhaps in the future I may do both whispered and soft-spoken versions of these videos. But this is my first ever attempt at something like this, so I'm open to any feedback you may have, constructive feedback, and any suggestions for the future. Any resources you may want to provide in order to maybe improve my channel. I don't know much about, obviously I've used YouTube for over a decade, but I don't know much about video creation. I'm not a very techie person. I don't know much about that sort of stuff. As evidenced by my choice of degree, I'm much more to physical material, to books and things like that, and usually only use the computer for essay writing and watching some of my favorite shows and basic things like that. I'm rambling. I'm sorry. Not making much sense now. That's okay. I'll improve with time. We all do. But I think I'll close the video now. Maybe I'll come up with a closing remark, a bit of a catchphrase in the future. For now, just have a good night. And thank you for listening or watching.